The Sharkmaid is here. Ellen is the first limited S rank character and she has been by far and above my favorite character across all beta tests, and she is even better now. In this video we'll go over Ellen's full kit and damage rotations, analyze and compare her ideal W engines, drives, Mindscapes and stats to prioritize, and even some hidden interactions and optimal combo routes. I didn't want to rush out this guide even though I used Ellen during the closed beta tests, because I wanted to provide you guys with as much information as possible so that you can get the most value out of your account. So with that being said, hello everyone, my name is DarkHero and let's get started. So let's start by taking a look at Ellen's stats. The most relevant stats are that Ellen has the highest base attack in the entire game, and by virtue of being an attacker, has an increased crit rate that goes up to 19.4% at level 60, making it far easier to build around proper crit values. That being said, let's address Ellen's core gameplay mechanics and how to optimize her combos. Ellen's most important mechanic is the flash freeze charges that you can see indicated below Ellen's icon. Ellen can hold up to 6 flash freeze charges or stacks, and these flash freeze stacks are going to be incredibly important to increase Ellen's damage output, as Ellen's regular basic attack combo doesn't do much damage, but by consuming flash freeze stacks, one of them per basic attack, her basic attacks will not only deal much more damage but will also become infused with ice, allowing you to build up ice anomaly on the enemies, which is going to lead to even more damage. Additionally, flash freeze charges will also increase the damage of Ellen's dash attack. That is, on top of having increased crit damage up to a maximum of 100% additional crit damage at max level, thanks to her core passive Sharp Tooth. Ellen's enhanced basic attacks do a lot of damage, with the third and final hit having a crazy high damage multiplier, so it really is important that you land it. One small but very important optimization to deal more damage with Ellen is that you can actually hold or repeatedly mash the attack button during the third and final hit of your combo to have the blade spin more times and deal increased damage. So how do you obtain these flash freeze stacks? Simply performing Ellen's EX special will generate a flash freeze stack, and Ellen actually has 2 different EX specials that you can perform one after another provided you have enough energy to do so. And a very cool thing about using Ellen's second EX special, Shark Nami, is that you can immediately follow it up with the third and final hit of Ellen's basic attack combo for a massive burst of damage. Now, the other way of generating flash freeze stacks, which you will be using more often, is by entering what is called the roaming state. Ellen can enter the roaming state by holding or double tapping the dodge button, making Ellen move around much quicker. During this roaming state, Ellen will be able to perform 2 new attacks. If you simply press the attack button, Ellen will perform Arctic Ambush, which will generate 1 flash freeze charge. However, if you instead hold down the attack button while in the roaming state, Ellen will perform a much more powerful charged attack that will deal more damage and generate 3 flash freeze stacks at once. The charge up animation can be a bit slow and leaves you vulnerable to taking damage from enemies. However, you can make the charge up time much quicker by perfect dodging an incoming attack or by triggering a quick assist and passing on to Ellen. Quick assists can be triggered when you get hit and can swap to a different character. You will see the assist indicator start pulsating red, and the icon of the character that will be swapped in will be displayed. That being said, quick assists can be forced to be triggered whenever a support uses their EX skill, though the character that you'll swap into will always be the character that is in the slot to the right of the support, so do pay attention to that. It should also be noted that you can swap to a different character whilst charging up during the roaming state, allowing you to output some additional damage with the next character and start building up a stun. So do remember this and try to use it pretty much every time you want to swap off of Ellen to get more stacks when you return to her. And so before we go over a few more hidden interactions and combo routes, let's analyze Ellen's optimal damage rotations. Starting with the standard damage rotation. This is what you will be doing mostly outside of your burst window. You'll want to swap into Ellen either by a chain attack or with a quick swap, and immediately go into the roaming state and use the dash charged attack to get 3 flash freeze stacks. Then do the full basic attack combo to spend all 3 flash freeze stacks and repeat the same process before you swap off Ellen. This will be more than enough for you to deal with most content in the game, though if you are fighting against a boss, it would be smarter to hold on to those flash freeze stacks and save them for the burst window. And so now let's move on to the burst rotation. This is the order in which you'll want to use your skills and combos when the enemy is stunned, and provided that you are full on energy and flash freeze stacks so that you can deal as much damage as possible during during this burst window. Start by swapping into Ellen from either a chain attack or a quick swap and immediately use your ultimate. Then use your first EX special followed by your 3-hit basic attack combo. After that, use the 2 EX specials into the third and final hit of the basic attack combo, and again remember to use the dash charged attack before you swap off of Ellen so you already have 3 stacks when you swap back to Ellen in the future. These combos will deal an insane amount of damage and blow through bosses' HP like no one else can. And of course, against random trash mobs you can mix the standard rotation with some EX skill usage and just about anything will get the job done. That being said, let's now go over Ellen's passives. As I explained before, Sharp Tooth is going to provide additional crit damage up to 100% at max level whenever you perform an attack that consumes your flash freeze stacks. As for the additional ability Rising Storm, this one is going to allow Ellen's ice damage to be increased up to 30%, ramping up each time she hits an enemy with ice damage. And for this additional ability to take effect, you will need to have an ice character or a Victoria Housekeeping Company faction character on your team. And to that effect, a character that fits both descriptions is of course going to be Von Lycaon. But before we go over Ellen's best teams, let's go over her best Bangboos, W engines, and the stats that you should try to optimize. So now that we have gone over the entirety of Ellen's kit, let's take a look at the different Mindscapes so you know whether or not it is worth it for you to get multiple copies of Ellen. Her M1 is actually going to change the way that Ellen is fundamentally played, as with this Mindscape, on top of increasing her crit rate up to 12%, the amount of flash freeze charges that Ellen is going to be able to generate is going to be increased, with her regular dash attack Arctic Ambush now generating 3 flash freeze charges instead of 1, and the charged dash attack now generating 6 flash freeze charges instead of only 3. So with this, you would be able to max out your flash freeze stacks with a single dash charged attack. That being said, I don't believe that ultimately this Mindscape is going to be amazingly powerful, because in terms of damage output, it's not really going to change the way that you play during burst windows with Ellen, though of course it is going to make it easier for you to generate those flash freeze stacks. That being said, her second Mindscape is actually a lot more powerful, as it will make it so that you can follow up the third hit of your basic attack combo by directly using the second EX special attack Shark Nami. Additionally, whenever Ellen uses an EX special attack, each stack that she has is going to increase the crit damage of the EX special attack that she is using by 20% up to a maximum of 60%. So as long as you have 3 flash freeze charges, you will be able to increase the crit damage of your EX special attacks by 60%, which is of course going to lead to you dealing much more damage, especially in the burst windows. And again, given that with the Mindscape 1 you're going to be able to max out the flash freeze charges a lot quicker, the 60% additional crit damage on your EX specials is pretty much always going to be active. And her M4 is going to instantly give Ellen 6 flash freeze charges and a quick charge effect, which is what allows her to use the dash charged attack quicker, as well as recover 4 energy whenever someone on the team freezes or stuns an enemy, with the energy regen effect having a 10-second cooldown. It's a decently nice bonus to have for sure, but one that I don't value a whole lot. And finally, Mindscape 6 is going to provide Ellen with a very consistent pen ratio of 20%, which is of course going to lead to her dealing much more damage, and the fact that this can be triggered by using either EX special attack, chain attack, or quick charge means that you'll be able to have this effect pretty much every single time Ellen is on the field. Additionally, doing any of these things will provide Ellen with a special tag called The Feast Begins, and whenever Ellen has 3 stacks of The Feast Begins, using the dash charged attack will consume all of those stacks but will increase the damage of that attack by 250%. Increasing the damage of the dash charged attack is a pretty nice effect, but I do believe that the additional pen ratio that you get from this Mindscape is what really is going to allow Ellen to just break the game. Do note that you do not need any of these Mindscapes for Ellen to be a powerful character. In fact, she is the very best DPSer in the entire game at release and does not need any extra copies to be impactful. Though if you were to ask me which one of these is going to be the most impactful, other than going all the way to M6 of course, I would say that her second Mindscape is going to be the best one. In terms of the best Bangboos to go with Ellen, the 2 natural choices are of course going to be the Shark Boo as well as the Butler, with the Shark Boo dealing a lot of ice damage and building up ice anomaly and requiring you to have 2 different ice characters to use its additional ability. As for the Butler, this one requires you to have 2 Victoria Housekeeping Company faction characters on the same team to use its additional ability, which will provide you with even more energy regen. Now the energy regen that the Butler provides provides isn't all that amazing considering the long cooldown on the active skill, though it is certainly going to be more versatile and fit into a bigger number of teams. But now let's go over Ellen's best W engines. I'm going to be providing a full breakdown as I rank all of the different W engines that are going to fit best for Ellen, and then at the end I will provide you with a graph showing the exact comparison between all the different W engines, showing the mathematical comparison between all the different W engines both in and out of the standard and burst rotations, so that you can best decide which one to get on your account. Her signature W engine, the Deep Sea Visitor, is of course going to be her best in choice, given that it not only provides you with 24% crit rate on top of an additional 25% ice damage, and its effect being able to buff your crit rate by an additional 20%, and so with this W engine by itself you will be able to make Ellen have around 64% crit rate without any bonuses on top. The next best W engine is going to be the Brimstone, with this one providing you tons of attack percentage, with the only condition being that you use basic attacks, dash attacks or dodge counters, which naturally with Ellen you'll be doing it a lot, though you won't be doing a lot of basic attacks during your burst window, which is why its performance is going to be slightly lacking during the burst rotation. The next best W engine is going to be the Steel Cushion, which is Nekomata's signature W engine. It provides you with additional crit rates and will increase the damage dealt by Ellen when hitting the enemy from behind, and this 25% damage increase can actually be very powerful, especially as you are able to teleport behind the enemies with the final hit of your basic attack combo. Now, given that it is such a conditional effect for this W engine, combined with the fact that we're not even going to take advantage of the increased physical damage, unless you already have the Steel Cushion, I would advise against trying to get it and going instead with the next W engine, and that is of course going to be the Starlight engine. This A-rank W engine is very powerful, especially at S5, aka after having fed it multiple copies of it. Its conditional effect is very easy to trigger, simply requiring a dodge counter or a quick assist, and as we have gone over, you're going to be getting that quick assist a lot. And so with multiple copies of this W engine, it is actually going to be on par with the performance of the Steel Cushion, and given that everyone gets one of these for free at the start of the game, and that you can easily craft A-rank W engines after some time with the game, the Starlight engine really is going to be the best free-to-play option. Though if you really want to go down into the B-rank W engines, the Lunar the Crescent is going to be your best choice. And finally, here you can see on your screen the full comparison between all the different W engines and how effective they are going to be on Ellen, both in the standard rotation and in the burst rotation. And do keep in mind that the calculations were provided by Pridewind, they were not done by me. Now let's go over how to optimize Ellen's build so you can deal the most amount of damage possible. I'll be analyzing each disk drive set individually, which is the same thing as relics or artifacts from HSR and Genshin, and then I will provide a mathematical comparison at the end so you can decide which ones to go for. As in Zenless Zone 0, there are 6 different slots and every disk drive can go into any slot. For your 4-piece sets, there's going to be 3 different options that I would recommend, with the first one being the Woodpecker Electro. This one is going to provide you with an additional 8% crit rate, as well as increase your attack by simply hitting the enemy with basic attack, dodge counters or EX special attacks. It's a set whose conditional bonus is going to be very easy to trigger, which means that it is pretty much always going to be active. As such, while the Woodpecker Electro may not be necessarily the most powerful set during your burst rotation, it is certainly going to be the most well-rounded and the one that I recommend you to go for the most. After that, we have the Puffer Electro. This one is not only going to increase your pen ratio by 8%, but will also increase the damage of your ultimate by 20%, and whenever you use the ultimate, you will be increasing Ellen's attack by 15% for 12 seconds. As such, the Puffer set really is going to excel during the short burst windows where you have everything already set up. Immediately use your ultimate, which is going to deal increased damage, and then everything else you're going to do is going to deal even more damage. Though because this set is so focused around having your ultimate, during the standard rotations where you don't have it active or you're just not using it, the Puffer set is going to be by far the weakest choice. And then we have the Polar Metal. This set is going to not only increase your ice damage by 10%, so you pretty much get a universal 10% damage bonus for Ellen, but will also increase the damage of your basic attack and dash attack by 20%, which can be boosted up to 40% whenever someone on your team triggers Freeze or Shatter. The Polar Metal is certainly a nice set to have, especially during these standard rotations where it is going to excel over the Woodpecker Electro. That being said, when it comes to your burst rotations, the Polar Metal is going to end up lacking behind. And so we get to the graph and you can see the full comparison comparison between the 3 different sets, with the Puffer Electro being the #1 choice during your burst rotations, the Polar Metal slightly coming ahead when it comes to the standard rotations, and finally the Woodpecker Electro just being an all-around very powerful and consistent set throughout both rotations. That being said, as I explained before, every character can equip up to 6 disc drives, which means that you would be able to add an additional 2-piece set bonus, so let's go over the different 2-piece sets that I would recommend. If you're not using the Woodpecker Electro, naturally I would recommend the 2-piece set bonus from the Woodpecker Electro, as it is essentially just going to provide you with an additional 8% crit rate. Another option would be to go with the Hormone Punk, as it is going to increase your attack by 10%. Very simple and very straightforward. And finally, the Polar Metal, in case you're not using it as your 4-piece set, is going to increase your ice damage by 10%. The difference between all of these 2-piece set bonuses on Ellen is actually going to be very marginal, so I would recommend, depending on how exactly you have built your Ellen and the different offensive stats that she has, to try to use the 2-piece set bonus that is going to complement some of her weaknesses. So for example, if you don't have a lot of ice damage bonus on your disc drives, adding the 2-piece Polar Metal is going to be a wise choice. That being said, it is imperative that we talk about the best stats that you're going to want to prioritize for Ellen to deal as much damage as possible. Now, when it comes to the main stats in Zenless Zone 0, some of the disc drives actually have a fixed main stat, with the first one always giving you HP, the second one always giving you flat attack, and the third one always giving you flat defense. That being said, your other 3 slots is where things can roll with different main stats. So on the next slot, you would either want to have crit rate or crit damage. For the 5th slot, having ice damage percentage, pen ratio percentage, and attack percent are all going to be beneficial to you, but this is the order in which you should prioritize them. And finally, for the 6th slot, you want to go for attack percent. And in terms of your substats, you're going to want to prioritize having as much crit rate and crit damage as possible, followed by ice damage percent, attack percent, and finally pen ratio. And as always, remember to maintain a good crit rate to crit damage ratio, so don't go in with your 40% crit rate Ellen and 300% crit damage. You really want to aim for something a bit more consistent. And finally, let's talk about Ellen's best teams. By far and above, her best team is going to be the Mono Ice team that is going to be comprised of Ellen, Soukaku, and Lycaon, as all 3 members are going to have synergy by having the same attributes, and thanks to his core passive, Lycaon is going to be able to decrease the target's ice damage resistance by 25%, which is of course going to allow Ellen to deal much more damage, on top of Lycaon already being the #1 stunner in the entire game. And as for Soukaku, not only is she going to provide a meaningful attack buff thanks to her core passive by using the Fly the Flag, which is always going to trigger quick assist, which is going to allow Ellen to be able to build up her charges quicker, but on top of that, her additional ability is going to increase the ice damage of the entire team by an additional 20%. Not to mention that Soukaku is a free character for everyone, and since she is a featured character on Ellen's banner, you are likely going to be getting multiple copies of Soukaku, at which point you can unlock the Mindscape 4, which is going to reduce the enemy's ice resistance by 10%. Now, in case you don't have Lycaon, you could always replace him with Rina for a second support that is going to share the same synergy as Ellen. But in my opinion, given how valuable stunners are in Zenless Zone 0, I would much rather recommend you to go with someone like Koleda or even Anby, even though they don't share any sort of synergy, just because of how powerful stunners are in the endgame. But even if you don't manage to finish the Mono Ice team, Ellen is still going to kick ass and destroy pretty much everyone, since that is what she excels at. I honestly believe that Ellen is an extremely powerful character that may not even be power crept for a long time, just because of how simple and powerful her kit is. So if you are still on the fence as to whether or not you should summon for Ellen, me personally, I would totally recommend it, especially if you happen to have Lycaon. With that being said, please leave a like on the video if you found this guide helpful, as I will be trying to make many more guides for all of the different characters. Subscribe for better luck on your next 50-50, and as always, my name is DarkHero, and thank you all so much for watching.